Well, Caroline, first of all,
And where do I look? Here or you?
you can look off to me.
Okay.
I appreciate your time. And first of all, talk a little bit about, obviously, first of all, you're a Navy vet.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back to the time, what was going through your mind when you said to yourself, hey, I want to join the military and the Navy, like when and where and all that?
Yeah, so I was in high school and looking at colleges. My dad was an Air Force pilot, and so I grew up overseas, or all around the country and overseas, with him serving his country, and I was like, this seems interesting, and I would like to investigate, and so I looked into the possibility of doing the Naval ROTC program at UVA, and that's what ended up working out the best. And it's funny because people are always like, was your dad mad that you went Air Force and not, or went Navy and not Air Force? And no, he wasn't. He always encouraged me because the Navy has better bases because you got to be near the water. So it was, I grew up watching my dad serve his country, and it was something that I was interested in doing. And this route was perfect mix of everything I was hoping to do when, looking at University of Virginia and the potential to serve. And it was a little bit of you weren't locked in right away. So it gave me a chance to really test the waters, if you will, and see if it was something I wanted to do, and I absolutely loved it.
So what year did you join the Navy?
I was commissioned upon graduation at UVA in 2007, and then I was selected as a Naval Flight Officer, NFO, and went down to Pensacola for flight school. No, you're good. Sorry, I realize I'm swaying too.
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure someone comes out, they don't trip, and then someone got injured. So and obviously, being commissioned, so you're an officer, so obviously being an officer, they're considered leaders. Just talk about that leadership aspect, because obviously going through ROTC,
yeah,
it does teach you about leadership, and obviously you're going to be in charge of seamen in this case.
Yeah, so it was a great experience through ROTC because you got a chance to learn in stages. You got a chance to progress through the unit, have leadership roles that you earned or were given to you at certain points, and it was nice to be able to test things out and kind of feel out your leadership style. You asked me about, why I got out. So 8 years was the end of my commitment. I had a great time. I did 2 years in flight school, 3 years with my operational squadron out in Washington State, and then 3 years at the Pentagon, which I actually really loved. It was a really neat experience with Defense Intelligence Agency. But I was looking at kind of where I was going to go, and I was really interested. I had started writing on the side for some sports outlets, really enjoyed covering sports, and it was something that I felt like it was a little bit now or never. Like if I'm going to take a chance on it, I should probably do it now. And I was able to find a really great program at Georgetown University at their School of Continuing Studies, so their Sports Information Management program. It's sports industry management. Can we fix that? Okay. Sports industry management program, and it gave me a chance to get a feel and see different opportunities that existed in the sports world. And so it was something that I thought, I'll take a chance on it. Let's see what happens.
So when you look at being a naval officer, being in the military, what was some of your challenges? Have you had any challenges when you were in?
Of course. It's a high stress situation. I wasn't expecting to go aviation. I actually had put surface first on my selection sheet, and I wanted to be on a destroyer. I was like, this is gonna be great. And they really needed NFOs that year, just based on numbers. And so they said, congratulations, you got your second choice of NFO. Please go get a flight physical. So all of a sudden I was thinking I was gonna be doing one thing, and then, I think that adaptability is clearly important as you serve in the military, and that has served me well now on the civilian side of things. But also just the challenges that go along with, running a mission in the back of an aircraft during, combat missions, and there's multiple inputs coming in, and you have to figure out what's important, how to communicate with others, how to work with others in a team, and to stay on top of organizational stuff so you're still qualified, that you're meeting all of your training wickets. And so I think that's probably been the biggest benefit now transitioning out of the Navy, that all of those things have been applicable now to my current life and job as well.
What was your rank when you got out?
I was a lieutenant, so 03, and then
It is. It's windy.
Yeah. It's getting nice out here. Yes, I was a lieutenant 03, so yeah, 8 years. Yeah, so a senior lieutenant, I guess, is the, and then I think those are, yeah.
So, obviously, being a UVA grad, when you know about the athletic programs, and you've been, what made that transition, and how'd you end up, because you've been covering UVA since basically you got out of the military. So, how did all those routes and those jobs, how did all those come into play?
A little bit of luck, a little bit of going after it. I think when I moved back, actually I started writing on the West Coast for some lacrosse stuff, and so I was out on the West Coast and inside lacrosse needed some East Coast contributors, and I said, hey, how about some West Coast contributors? And so I was able to write a few things for them, and then when I moved back to the East Coast of Virginia, I had a built-in place where I could use, to get some of the writing out that I wanted to do, and that led me to finding Streaking the Lawn, which is part of the SB Nation network, where I worked previously, just before the current job I'm in now, and it was a really great way to learn a lot of stuff. One by watching other reporters on the beat, watching how everyone else questions, and I had to get really creative with questioning sometimes, because as one of the younger people, from a experience standpoint, not necessarily always from an age standpoint, but I would go sometimes near the end of the questioning, and so it was always great to really build that skill set of watching and learning and figuring out how to connect with the coaches and the student athletes. And I've been very lucky to be here at a really good time where I've covered a Final Four, covered Virginia winning the national championship in 2019, covered a couple men's lacrosse championships, and had a chance to go to the College World Series, and it's just been an incredible experience, and one that definitely had plenty to write about.
Now, obviously, being a veteran and being in the military, there's obviously some disciplines you have to have, and I'm sure, those things definitely helped you, because you got to know time management, you got to do stuff in a short amount of time. Just talk about just how that part of it helps you today being a journalist.
Absolutely. It's a lot about that communication piece, like figuring out who needs to know what, how to connect with your audience. That was, when you're looking at a combat mission, you're not connecting with an audience, you're connecting with people that are interested with the outcomes of what you're doing, but the same ideals apply. And I think one of the bigger challenges when I was separating was trying to find a way to communicate via resume the experiences that I did have and the skill set that I had learned, because saying I ran a combat mission with this many people in these places doesn't necessarily translate to, hey, I can oversee a league of college websites and this and that, but I definitely learned how to manage a diverse group of people. That has been a huge benefit, and then how to concisely communicate with people, and the time management and attention to detail has always been one that I am very grateful for my time to.
How much pride? This is interesting. Yeah.
I'm gonna move that just
just
over here. Yeah.
So, how much pride do you have in being a military veteran?
Oh, a ton. It's funny because I think it feels like a different lifetime now, and it's not something that always comes up in conversation. Just how many times do you expect someone that you're talking to in a press room to also have had this experience? But it's something I'm super proud of. I have my I Love the Navy wall at home with the pictures of the plane and my old flight helmet, and every good aviator has to have the plane on a stick displayed somewhere in their house. So I love having those things, and I love talking about it. And it's just something that I sometimes can't believe that I did. It feels kind of weird, honestly, just because it again feels like a different lifetime. And you look with the popularity of Top Gun Maverick this year, and it wasn't quite the same plane, but some of the training that they put those actors through, I went through, and so it was a different type of viewing exercise for me. And through USA Today for the Win, where I work now, I was actually even able to do the press junket for the movie, and being able to connect with the actors over, hey, I'd done the Helo Dunker, was definitely an experience that I don't think I would have ever believed at all.
So I guess this is the answer, but I'll ask it again. What's your favorite military movie?
Oh, I have to go Top Gun Maverick now. It's just, it might be recency bias. You know, my dad would probably yell at me for not saying they're like Gettysburg from like 1994 that we saw together on base when I was a kid. But there's just something about seeing that movie in the theater and feeling it in your chest, and it's a ton of fun, especially again with that pride I have being a naval aviator. It's cool to see that depicted on the big screen.
So probably, you kind of mentioned this, not probably a lot of people know that you were in the military. You know, what are some of the responses you get when you tell them, hey, I'm a Navy vet, you know, or if something comes up and maybe a military thing and they say, hey, I was a Navy vet, and I was in the military.
Yeah, it's sometimes usually a double take, I guess, like, wait, what? Like, when did you do that? And I was like, well, I did for 8 years after I graduated. See, it's usually a surprise and then usually a lot of questions, which again, I really love. I love answering those questions and talking about it, and especially since going from the Navy to sports media and, you know, sports industry isn't necessarily the usual pathway. Like, you'll see a lot of military veterans that go into contracting or consulting, or, and, you know, and not to stereotype and like broad label it, but, you know, generally the into sports pipeline is a lot smaller, I think, or at least I haven't run into as many, which is unfortunate. So I want more people to come into the sports industry, but yeah, usually surprise, and then a lot of questions. But it's always been a really good reception, which is fun.
How neat is it to see other veterans? Like when you're out and about and you see maybe somebody with a hat on, or they served overseas somewhere, you know, how does that make you feel when you see other veterans out there? Because I'm sure you have a lot of pride in that too.
It's always, it feels like a club almost, right? So it's, you don't always know everyone who's in it, but when you do see someone, it's kind of this kinship that you feel with them, even if you don't even say anything. But, you know, if I see a Navy person walking around, there's the JAG school here in Charlottesville. I usually hit them with a, you know, go Navy, beat Army. You know, it's fun to, even though it was an academy, get involved in, you know, the rivalry, and I have a good time watching and rooting for Navy just across the board. So it's really great to see and connect with, especially across generations, because that experience that each generation has had in service is, I think, always interesting to talk about and discuss and honor.
Now, last season, if I remember right, Virginia played Navy, so was that kind of a tough thing to because Navy beat Virginia?
Yeah, first game of the season, right?
But I mean, was that kind of were you kind of torn in that game?
I always say, like, you know, if you know, with both Georgetown and Navy, Virginia being my undergrad and through my MBA program, I always root for Virginia first. But if they have to lose, I guess, you know, they lost to Georgetown in the men's soccer championship a couple years ago too. But yeah, I always said, like, with last season, like, the last team that you want to face day one with a new squad having to figure stuff out is a team that is known for discipline and preparedness, right? So, and Navy showed that they were ready to face the pack line, and they played an outstanding game on offense. So it was, but yeah, it's always tough when it's your own people, right?
That's true. Finally, you know, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone who's thinking about maybe joining the military?
Yeah, I would say do your research, talk to people, hear stories, hear experiences, find out the best way that you can make the most of the situation for yourself, what you can learn, figure out what you want to get from it, and really go into it open-minded and knowing that you're going to have to work hard, but that it'll pay off